今より石破内閣総理大臣による記者会見を行います。はじめに総理から発言がございます。では総理、よろしくお願いします。
はい、遅い時間に恐縮です。よろしくお願いを申し上げます。本日の特別国会におきまして、第103代内閣総理大臣にご指名をいただきました。この重みを厳粛に受け止めております。我々自由民主党は、野党であった平成22年に、新しい党の綱領を策定いたしました。
In
そこにはこのようにあります。
2010, we became the opposition party, and we decided that we as LDP, we will have courage, and we will talk about truth with freedom and frankness. Diversified organizations, we had diversified dialogues, and to run the diet in a fair manner, and to operate a sound government. This is what we pledged when we became the opposition party. And with this pledge, we were back to the power. 12 years have passed. Again, I want to go back to this origin.
今般の実に厳しい選挙の結果を受けまして、
We were hit
我
very
々
hard
自由民主
in
党
the
は
last election.
今度こそ
And the
あるべ
LDP,
き国民政党として生まれ
we
変わら
need
なけ
to
ればならないと考
become
えており
and
ます。
be reborn
国
as
民
an
お一人お一
ideal
人が
national party
何に
for our
苦し
people.
み、
We
何に
have
悲
to
しみ、
understand what our people are
何に勝
suffering
っておら
from.
れるか、
Why are they
それを
sad?
我がこととして受け止められる。
And we
そういう
have
政党に
to
当た
put
り前のこ
our
となのですが、
selves in their
今
shoes.
一度
And
立ち返らな
this
けれ
is
ばなりま
a
せん。
given. But
とりわけ
we really have to
政治資
go
金
back
は非
to
課税とされ
square
ているわ
zero.
けでありますが、この政治資金に対して
Political
厳しい国民の皆様方の目が向けら
are
れている
exempt from tax.
ということを
But
強く
people
認識をし、
are having a very
政治
severe,
は国民のもので
are
ある
very severely
そういう原点に
scrutinizing the
立ち返
political
って
funds. And we
政
have
治改
to
革と党
go
改
back
革
to
に
square
取り
zero
組んでまいります。
to work on the
今後主と
political
して国会でご
reforms
議論をい
and
ただ
party
きます 中
reforms.
でも、
We
いわゆ
had
る旧
diet
文通
discussions,
調査研
but
究
the,
広報滞在費と今言
the
っております
former
が、
diet
旧
members'
文通
fees,
費の使途の公
including
開、
transportations, etc.
残
The
金の返
usage
還に
needs
つ
to
きま
be
しては、
a disclosure of the
最
usage
高
and
などへの
also
手
the
当を含
return
めま
of
して、
the
早急に国民の皆様方に決議をお
those
示
matters
しをいたしてまいり
have
ま
to
す。
be discussed, and we have to reach a
政党
conclusion
か
as
ら
soon as
議員に
possible
対
and
して
to show those
党
to the
勢拡
people.
大等のために支出されております政策活動費、
The funds for political activities that are used to expand the power of the
個
parties,
人法人のプライバシ
the privacy
ー、あ
of
るいは営業
individuals
上
and
の秘
corporations,
密を保
and
護するな
also
どの理由
to
で
protect
使途の
the
公開を不要
business
といたしてまいります。
secrets. The
しかしこれは
usage
もはや
of those funds
国
are
民の
not
ご理解を
disclosed
得
due
る
to
こと
those
が難し
reasons.
くなった
But now
考え
we
ております。
cannot
我が党
secure
とい
the
たしま
trust
して
from
も
the people anymore,
この廃止を含めて
including
博士的な
the
議論をする
abolition
ことを
of these
決断をいた
funds.
したところで
We
あ
have
りま
made
す
a
が、
decision
この
to
ことにつきましては、
review those
各
systems.
党、各会派におきましてご
Each
議論をいただ
party
き、早期に
and each
決を負うべく、
factions,
私
we
自
had
身、
them to
誠心誠
discuss,
意尽
and
力
in
をい
order
た
to
して
have
まい
an
り
early
ます。
discussion, I'm
いわゆる
working all
政
out
治と
on
金
those.
の問題というの
The issue
は、
of
これ
politics
は
and money,
民主主義のコスト、
the
この負
cost
担
of
はどうあるべ
democracy.
きか
It
とい
is
うこ
about
とに帰結をいたします。
how should we think of
私
the
ども
cost
が
of democracy?
30年以上前に
More than 30 years ago,
政治改革の議論、
we
これに
already
邁
had the
進をし、
discussions of political
反感
reforms.
学
We
の
had
議論を
that
行って
every
きたので
week,
あり
and
ま
we
す
had
が、
very intensive
この時か
discussions.
らいわゆる政党助成金、
At that point,
こういう公的な資金を入れるにあたって、
the
その公的
subsidies
資
for
金の割合があ
political
まりに
parties,
高くなると、
when
政
the
党であ
ratio
るとか
of
政治
those
というものが
money is too high,
過度に
then the
国
politics
家
and
権
the
力に依存するこ
political
とになりか
parties
ねない。
will become too
こういう話は
dependent
30数年前からあったところ
on
であります。
state organizations.
古
And
くて
this
新しい
discussion
議論なん
started
ですが、
more than 30 years
政党
ago.
助
It's
成金
not
のウェイト
something
を上げてい
new.
けばいいじゃないかという議論は
It's-
常にあるのです
We
が、
always had a discussion
それをや
to
ることによっ
raise
て、
the
政党が
proportion
国家に依存
of
する
that fund.
というこ
But
とは
that
本当
means
にいい
that
こと
the
なのだろう
political
かという
parties
話
will
でござい
rely
ま
on the
す。従いま
country.
し
Is
て、
that
企
really a
業
good
団
thing?
体献金も
The
国民の皆様
donations,
方からの
political
常在の意
donations
思と、
from
こういう捉え方をして今日に
corporations
至っておる
and
わけであり
individuals.
ますし、
This is
昭和
basically the origin
45
of the
年の最高裁
discussions.
の判決におきましても、 憲法上、企業が政党に対して政治資金を寄付する自由を有することが認められております。であればこそ、政治資金はどこからどこにどれだけの支援が行われ、それがどのように使われたのかという点について、高い透明性を確保し、これをもって有権者の皆様方にご判断をいただく必要があるということであります。平たい言葉を使えばガラス張りにするということであります。で、この透明性を飛躍的に向上させ、政治資金を本当のガラス張りにするためには、
significantly, in order to make it really transparent, we need more work on
で、政治
this.
資金収支報告の
The
利益
political
化をさらに推し進め、
founders report needs
収
to
支
be
報
further
告書等の
digitized,
内容を
and the income
誰でも容
statement,
易に確認ができるデータベー
what's
ス
inside
を
the
構築をす
reports
るということ
need
は、
to be
危険に行う
visible
べき改
for
革である
anyone, and this is
考え
an
ております。
urgent
これは
reform that we have
政
to
治資金
make.
規正法の第1条にこのように定められ
In
て
the
あるわけであり
first
ます。
article, Article 1
つま
of
り
the Political
政
Fund
治資
Control
金
Act,
という
it
ものは国民
stipulates
の不
that
断
the
の監視のもと
political
にあるべきだ
funds
というこ
should
とが政治
always
資金規正法の第1
be
条に
an
定められている
interest
わ
and
け
be
でありまして、
scrutinized by the eyes
こ
of
れ
the
に資する
people.
ことに
This
な
is
る
stated
という
by
ことに
the
なると考えて
Control
おりま
Act,
す。
and we need
で、これと同
to
時に
follow
党
this
内にお
act.
きます政治資金を含めました意思決定プロセスの透明化、
Decision-making
Compliance
process
の
also
強化、
needs to be
これ
made
も必要なこと
transparent,
で
and
あります。
compliance needs
我が
to
党
be
は他
enhanced
党に
within
先
the
駆けて
parties.
ガバナ
So
ンスコードを
LDP,
導入しておるわ
ahead
け
of
であ
other
ります
parties,
が、
we have
そう
introduced
で
the
あらばこ
governance
そ自由
code,
民主党こそが
and LDP
最も透明性の
should
高
be
い
the
党
most
運営を実現
transparent
しなければならないと考えている
just
と
because
ころ
of
であ
that.
ります。その上で、プ
With
ラ
that
イ
in
バシー
mind,
や秘密の保護
privacy
などの
and
ため、
confidential information
公
should be
開が困
protected
難な部分
in
に
case
ついて
information
は、
cannot be
独
disclosed
立した第三
officially.
者機関の
An
監視のもとに
independent
置く、
third party
このような
should
仕組みも必要
supervise
であ
that
ると考えており
information.
ま
We
す。
believe that kind of
これらの
system
ことに
is
つきましては、
necessary.
先
On
週か
those
ら
matters,
自
since
由民
last
主党
week,
の政治
the
改革本部で
LDP
議論を開始をい
headquarters
たし
for
ており
political
ます。
reform and
速やか
has
に
started
自由民主党としての案を
discussion
取
as
り
soon
ま
as
とめ、
possible.
年内に
come
も
up
必
with
要な
a
法制上の
proposal
措置を可
recommendation
能
by
と
them
する
this
べ
year. I think we have to
く、
make
多くの党のご
and
協力を得られ
legislation
るように
possible
努力を
so
いた
that
し
we
て
will
まいります。
try to gain support
記
from
載
very
問題につき、
political
各々
parties
が説
and
明責
listing
任
of
を果た
political
すため、
funds for
政
each
倫
dark
審の場
member
を
to
含め
pay
まして、
play
あらゆる場を
responsibility,
積
including
極的に
political
活用する
ethics
ように
and
促
the
してまいり
committee
ます。
directing colors the
私どもの
discussions
内閣
of
で、
all parties in
一
my
人でも多く
government
の国民の皆様方の幸せを実現する
to
ために、
make as many
私は3
Japanese
つ
people
の
as
課題
possible
を優
happy.
先したいと考
I'd
え
like
て
to
います。
prioritize the three
第
items.
一は、
The first of,
当然のことであります
as a
が、
matter of course,
厳しさを増しております我が国の安全保障
national
環境へ
security
の対
environment
応。
surrounding Japan is
2つ
getting
目は
severe. We have to
治安
respond to
防
that.
災へ
Second
のさらなる対応。
is the response
3
to
番目
the
は
public order
日本
and the
全体に
disaster
活力を
prevention.
取り
The
戻す。
third is to
以上の
revitalize
3
Japan
点
as
で
a
ございま
whole.
す。
Those are three important topics
厳しさ
on
を
our
増す安
assignment.
全保障
National
の
security
安
environment
全保
surrounding
障環境へ
Japan
の
is
対応に
getting
ついて
severe.
で、
On the first matter, let me talk
多く
about
報道さ
what
れて
we're
おり
going
ま
to
すよう
do
に、
in
中
the
国、ロ
first
シア
matter.
は
As has been
我が
reported,
国の領
China
空の
and then Russia
侵犯、
have
これを
invaded
軍用機によっ
Japan's
て相次いで
airspace
行うな
by
ど、
their
我が国周
military
辺における
airplanes, and this
軍事活動
has
を
happened one
拡
after
大、
another.
活発化させ
And that
続け
two
ているというところ
countries
であります。
have been more active
北朝鮮も
in the
非常に
over
高い
Japan's
頻度
territorial
で
airspace.
弾道ミ
North
サイル
Korea
発射を繰り返しており、
very frequently
先日発射をいた
repeated
し
the
ました
launch of ballistic
ICBM 級弾道
missiles.
ミサイルは
The other day, North Korea launched
15,000
ICBM class ballistic missile. The range is over 15,000 kilometers in our expectation. That means the missile can reach any place
その
in the
北朝
United
鮮とロ
States.
シアの軍事協力も拡大をし、
Military cooperation between
北朝
North
鮮の兵
Korea
士がロシ
and
ア
Russia
に派
is
遣をされ、ウ
expanding.
クライナ軍
North
と戦
Korea
闘を行っていることも
dispatched its
報道の通り
soldiers
であり
to Russia. Then North Korean
このような
soldiers
中におい
engaged in
て、
fighting
抑
against
止力と
Ukraine.
しての我が国の防衛力の抜本的な強
Then
化が
drastic
必要
enhancement
である
of
ことは
Japan's
論を
talents
待たない
and
ところ
Japan's
であり
defense
ますが、
capability as a
どのよう
deterrence
な
is
装備を導
something
入
we
い
have
た
to
しま
do.
しても、
Whatever
防衛
defense
力の根幹は自衛
equipment
官
is
という人材に
introduced,
こそあ
then
る
the
のでござい
SDF
ます。
members are the foundation of
で、常に
Japan's
申し上げることで
national
ありますが、
and
定員の
defense capabilities.
90% しか自衛官は充足をされており りません。
and we have
これは
only
極めて憂慮すべき
90%
事態であ
of
り
the
ます。
SDF
防力
members
の人
are
的基
being
盤の強
fulfilled.
化に
And
つき
this
ま
is a
して、
matter of
私協議長
great
といたしま
concern
す
to
関係
carry
閣
out
僚会議を
and
すでに
enhance.
2回を開
We
催
had
し、
two meetings
精
of the
力的な
cabinet
議論を行
meeting
っております。
to discuss Japan's
今後取りま
enhancement
と
of
めま
defense
す経
capabilities
済
led
対
by
策にお
myself.
きましても、
The government is going to come up with an economic packages as soon as possible. Then we would like to include immediate measures. By the end of this year, there will be the interministerial direction and the budget, and will be booked in the budget of 2025. Cyber attack is an immediate threat. In the cyber security area, then we have to improve Japan's cyber capabilities and the bill, and then will be submitted to that as soon as possible. Discussion will be accelerated. Together with the enhancement of defense capabilities, and Japan has to enhance its diplomatic capabilities. We have a vision of free and open Indo-Pacific and maintenance of international rule based on the rule and public order. We have to realize Japan's national interests. We have to accelerate and deepen our collaboration with our allies and like-minded countries. As one measure, if situation circumstances permit, on 14th this month, Thursday, APEC G20 meeting, then I'd like to attend and the meetings in Latin America, then we have to have this is going to be an opportunity for us to enhance our collaboration with the Global South and Asia Pacific. President Biden and then President Yoon, I'd like to have summit talks with the leaders of various nations, and so that I'd like to have candid discussions with those leaders and the current international situations. The United States is the ally of Japan. With Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, I had a telephone talk with him, then I expressed my congratulations to his election. We have to maintain the very good relationship between Japan and the United States, and we have to step up relationship. As soon as possible, I'd like to have an opportunity to have a direct talk with Mr. Trump.
拉致問題について申し上げます。先日、拉致被害者のご家族の皆様方にお目にかかり、その思いを直接受けたまわりました。拉致問題は誘拐事件にとどまるものではございません。この本質は国家主権の侵害であるという認識を私は強く持っているところであります。すべての拉致被害者の方々の一日も早いご帰国を実現するために必要な手段はすべて講ずるという強い決意のもとでこの問題に総力を挙げて取り組みたいと考えております。第2に治安防災へのさらなる対応についてであります。いわゆる闇バイトによります強盗詐欺の被害が相次ぐ中、国民の皆様方の安全と安心の確保は急務であります。防犯カメラや防犯性能の高いドアの整備、青パトによるボランティアのパトロール活動の支援など、防犯対策をさらに促進をいたしますとともに、いわゆる匿名・流動型犯罪グループの検挙を徹底するための取り組みを一層推進をいたしてまいります。我が日本国は世界有数の災害発生国であります。世界中に発生いたしておりますマグニチュード6以上の地震の2割近くは日本で発生をされていると言われているところでありますが、近い将来には首都直下型地震、あるいは南海トラフ地震の発生も懸念をされているところであります。先週末から奄美、沖縄でも記録的な大雨が降りました。近年、風水害も頻発化、激甚化しておるところであります。私は就任直後、能登の被災地を訪れ、今なお厳しい環境下で過ごしておられる被災者の方々の姿を目の当たりにし、その声を直接聞いてまいりました。地理的な条件が不利であるとか、財政的には潤沢とは言えないとか、そういう地域で災害が発生したとしても、そうであるからして被災者の方々を苦難の中に置き続けるということは国家としてあるべき姿であるとは私は全く思っておりません。全国いずれの地域で災害が発生したとしても避難所で同じように安心していただける環境を提供するということは国家の責任であります。
where the
このような
affected
観点から
people can
避
have
難所の
a
満た
safe
す
and
べき
secure
基準を
life.
定めま
So
し
we
たスペア
have
基準
the sphere
これは今年の予算委員会で
the
私が岸
sphere
田総理にお尋ねをした
standard,
こと
which is a
でも
standard
ご
of
ざいますか
criteria
ら
for
議事録をご覧
evacuation
いただければ
centers.
幸いであり
And
ますが
please look at
この
the
スペア基
minutes
準を
of the
能登のすべての避難所に適用する
discussions
よう
that
に
we had,
指示をいたしたところであ
and
り
we
ます。
asked
被災者の
the
方々の
application
声を
of the sphere
必ず施
standards
策に
on
反
the
映さ
affected
せると
regions.
強い思いを持っておるわけでありますが、
The thoughts
この
of the
思いのも
affected
とに
people in the regions need to
11
be
月
reflected
11
in
月
the
1日に
policies.
防災
So
庁設置
on
準備室を
November
立ち上げた
the
ところであり
1st,
ま
we
す。
have
能
established
登
the
半島地震
preparation
の際
office
に
of
は発災
establishing
直
a
後から
disaster management
水、
agency.
食料、
Right
毛布、
after
段ボールベッ
the
ド、簡易ト
disaster
イレ、
hit Noto
あるいは
Desa
コンテ
region,
ナ
the
型トイレなどを
cart
迅
boxes
速
and
に避難所に
container
送り
type
込んだところであります。
laboratories,
また被災者の皆様
various
方に
goods were sent
温か
to
い
the
食事を
region
お
as soon
届け
as
するため
possible. And in order to
民間事
provide
業者
warm
とも連
food
携し
for
てキッ
the
チンカーの派遣にも
affected
取り
people,
組んで
we
おり
are
ます。
also working on the
被災
dispatchment
者の
of the
方
local
々の
support.
切実な悩み事、
In order to
お困りごとに
accommodate
で
the
きる限
urgent
り
needs
迅
of
速
the
に対応
affected
するよう
people
に努めま
as
し
soon as
た。
possible,
この経験を蓄積
we
伝
have
承し、
accumulated
避難
experience
者
and
の
know-how,
生活
and
環
this
境の
need
改
to
善、
be passed
トイレか
over
キ
to
ッチンカーな
enhance
どの迅速
the
な
living
配備体
environment
系
of
の
the affected
構
people
築、
and to
被災
establish
情報の
a
集約のた
proper
めの防
environment
災 DX な
for
どの飛躍
the
的な前
basic
進、
needs of living,
これらを
and
実現する
the
ため、
disaster prevention and
令和
DX
8
also
年
need
度
to be
中の
enhanced by
防災庁の設置に向け、着実に準備を進めてまいります。
2026 toward the
第3の課題に
establishment
つ
of
いて申し
disaster
上げ
management
ます。
agency. We are going
日
to work
本
all
全
out
体
on
の
that.
活力を取り
The
戻していか
third
ねばなり
item,
ませ
we
ん。
have to revitalize
我々
Japan
の
as a
内
whole.
閣が着
In
目を
my
しておるのは、
government, my
地
government
方
is
に
looking
眠っておる潜在力で
the
あります。
potential capabilities
日
in the
本
local
の
communities.
停滞しております。こ
There
の
has
経済、
been the
これを打
stagnancy
ち破
in
る
the
起爆
Japan's
剤は
economy,
中央だ
but
けに
the
あるのでは
trigger
ございま
and
せん。
to end
農林
it
水産業、製
cannot
造
be
業、サー
found
ビス
in
産
the
業、
local communities,
それら
but
の
the
持てる
agriculture
潜在
industry, the
力、ポ
service
テンシャルを
industries, and other
眠っ
industries,
たま
and
まに
those
してきた
industries
地
have
方の産業
potential.
こそが、
But the
この起
regional
爆剤になりうるということはかねてから申し
industries
上
could
げ
be
て
an
いるところであ
important
りま
trigger
す。
and to revitalize
地方
Japan's
創生
power.
2.0 というのは、単なる地方の活
Regional
性化策ではご
Revitalization
ざいません。
Initiative
これは
2.0 is
国
not
全
the
体の
simple
経済
the
政
plan
策
to
であり、
revitalize and
多様化の
Japan's
時代の
local
国民
communities,
の
but this
多
is
様
the
な幸せを
initiative
実
for
現するた
Japan.
めの
This
社
is
会
an
政策と位置
important,
づけている
this
ところ
is
であり
regarded as social
そのために
measure
は、
and to
中
realize
央
the
の行
happiness of
政の
Japanese
一律
people.
の指導では
And
実
so
行が上がるものでは
that
ご
this
ざい
cannot
ま
be
せん。
carried out by
地
only
方
by
自
the
治体
local governments.
1718の市町村が
And
主役となって
1,718 the
その地方の
municipalities
生
exist
産
in
性をど
Japan.
のよう
They
に
should
向上させるかを
work as main
それ
actors
ぞれの地
to
域のステ
carry
ー
out
クホルダーが
revitalization of
今
their
一度
own
真剣に
regions.
考え、
Stakeholders of
多
each
様な
region
価値観に合っ
should
た
give,
個性
should
的
give
な
serious
地域を
thought
創造
to
してい
that
くことが
matter.
必要であります。
So that it is necessary for us to
先
have
週
a
8
very
日に
unique
新た
local
な地方創
communities.
生本部
On
の
8th,
第1回となり
we
ま
had
す
the
会合を
first
開
meeting
催
of
い
the
たします。
headquarters for creating
これ
new
に
regional
加えて
economies
有
and
識者
living
会議を立ち上げ
environments.
るものであります。
And we
この
set
有識者
up
会議には
a
多
public
くの女性
expert
の委
meeting.
員、
That meeting has a
30代の委員に
number
も
of
参加をい
female
ただ
members
き、
as well as
女
members
性
in
や
their
若者に
30s.
も
And
選
so
ばれる
that
地域、
the
自治体とは何
regions
か
and local
ということを
communities
徹
and
底的に考
municipalities that are
え、
selected
結
by
論を
young
出してい
people
た
as
だ
well
き
as
たいと思
women.
っており
And
ま
I
す。
hope to see a conclusion
有識者
based
の方
on
々
the
が
full-fledged
関係閣僚
discussions.
とともに
Experts
各
together
地の
with
現場を訪ね、
ministers in
地
charge
域
of
の
that.
皆
They
様と
visit
共に
various places in
この国
Japan
の在り
and
方、
together with the
文化、
people
教
in
育、
those
社会を変
regions
革する
and
大
to
きなムーブ
reform
メ
the
ントを作り
Japan
出していく
and
こ
the
とが重要
culture,
で
the
あります。
education, as well as how the
万
nation
延
should
貨幣
be.
速乾を
There has to be a
労、創、
movement.
生の知見を集めて
We
打
have
ち
to
破るため、
recognize, we have to
年末 には
we have to
基本的な
collect
考え
the
方を決
wisdom
定を
of
い
the
たします。
young and experienced
ボトムアップ
and
の地方
people
のアイ
as
デアを
well.
後押しするために、
To
地
support
方
the
創生
bottom
の
up
交付金は
regional idea,
当初予算ベースで
revitalization
倍増
the
し
grants
つつも
will be
補
doubled
正予
from the
算
initial
案にしま
budget.
しても
But in the
前倒し
supplementary
を措置
budget,
し、
and
で
they'll be
きる
carried
だけ
out
早
ahead
く
of what
こん
is
なことを
originally
やりた
planned.
い、
As
こんな
soon as
街を作
possible,
りたいと
whenever
思って
people
おられ
have
る
ideas on
地
that
域の方々、自
community
治体の皆
planning,
様にお届けをし
and
て
they
ま
have
いります。
to realize that
デ
to
ジタ
the
ル技術
people
の活
and
用や
various communities.
地方の課題を
And
起点と
utilization
す
of
る
digital
規制制
technologies
度改革は
and
大胆に進めてまいります。
deregulation that will be carried
経
out
済
in a
全体の活性化に
very
つきまして
drastic
も、
manner.
きめ
On the
細かい政
revitalization
策
of
を一
Japan's
つ一つ
economy,
実現をしてまい
then
り
we
ます
have very specific
賃金上
policies
昇
to
が
be carried
物
out.
価
Wage
上昇を安定
increases.
的に上回る経済の実現
We
に
have
向
to
け
create
て
an economy which
経済
wage
対策、補
increases
正予算を
greater
編
than the
成し、
inflation. Then we
令和
have
7年
economic
度予算へ
measures
と
and there will be a book in the budget of 2025. There has to be seamless measures indeed. For the first time in about 30 years, wages increased, but we have to sustain the wage increases, and this benefit should be felt and expanded to SMEs and the local communities. We have so-called 1.3 million barrier. We have a shortage of workers and soaring energy prices, but we have to increase productivity and investment measures so that people in SMEs can make profits. And for sure, we have to carry out the wage and pass-through. Whenever the wage is unfair and based on anti-monopoly law and subcontracting law, and on the we have to revise the subcontracting law as soon as possible. In the next round of the wage negotiation spring, then we try to realize wage increases as minimum wages. And this month, they will exchange a meeting of the government and labor unions and the management of companies. Together with those measures, we'd like to create an environment where people in Japan can enjoy consuming various items without any worries. Medical services and pension systems, social systems themselves should be updated so that they can meet the needs of the current day, so that people of all generations will see less worries about the future. On My Number insurance card, we'd like to encourage the usage of My Number health insurance card. In case people don't have such a card, they'd like to provide a qualification confirmation documents and cards as soon as possible, so that without any My Number health insurance card, they can get medical treatment and this will be carried out. People have worries and anxieties, but like to take care of those anxieties. It is our idea that to take care of people's anxieties, we'd like to create Japan which can be invested by investors all over the world. The innovation, the startups will be supported, the investment in human resources will be carried out, and so that we like to create an environment where the new businesses can be introduced, and we like to introduce various measures indeed. TMSC plant was established in the Kumamoto Prefecture, and we like to expand that example as well. By 2030, over 10 trillion yen public subsidies will be carried out for the coming 10 years, and over 50 trillion yen investment will be encouraged. Revitalization of local communities and the revitalization of Japanese economy as a whole, then we are going to carry out those two things at the same time, so that we can realize the revitalized Japan. And so we can realize that unique and local communities and various needs can be met. This is the future, the picture of Japan we have in mind.
The democracy
is to reflect the diversified voices of the people with the different parties and to have better policies. And in the operation of the government in the near future, we will continue to have the coalition of the LDP and the new Komeito as a foundation, and we would like to incorporate the voices of the parties, other parties as much as possible. And to secure the safety and security for the people. We also have the attendance of the Secretary General of Komeito Party, and together with the submission of the budget and other policies to the Diet sessions, we will incorporate the voices of the people that reflected with the ballot, and we would like to we gained support to work on those issues and to form the broad agreement. And we need more support, and we need to think out of the box. And everything we do is for the happiness of the people. And again, we would like to have your support and your wisdom. In diplomacy and in internal affairs, we need to have the understanding of the people. And this will be a very strong push for us, and we will continue to pull out all the stops so that we can gain the public confidence. And we would like to ask you again to give us a chance and to create a brighter future for Japan. We continue to ask for your support. That concludes my opening
それ
remarks.
では皆様よりご質問いただき
Now
ま
we
す。
will take
指名を受けられ
questions
ました
from you.
方は、お
When
近くのスタンドマイクに
you
進
are
み、
called, please
社
go
名
to
とお名前を
your
お
go
っ
to
しゃっ
the
た上で、
nearest
一人一
microphone
問
and
ご
please
質問願い
state
ます。
your name
こ
and
の後の
affiliation.
日
Please
程
keep
が
your
ござい
question
ま
to
すの
one.
で、進
We
行にあた
have
りましては
further
ご協力をお願いいたします。
schedules.
まず、幹事社からご質
So
問いただき
please,
ます。
thank you for your
東京
cooperation
新
and
聞
we will take questions from the coordinators.
坂田
Sakata-san with Tokyo Shimbun, please.
東京中日新聞の坂田と
This is Sakata from Tokyo Chunichi
少
Shimbun.
数与党という状況下で
The LDP doesn't have a majority in the upper house. In the lower house, you have to get support from the opposition parties. The opposition parties are demanding the revision of Political Fund Control Act. But in the upper house, lower house committee, then you said that revision will be considered by the end of this year. Would you please talk about your determination to realize the revision of the law? Abolishment of the donations from companies to political parties, what's your idea? Then even though with diet members who didn't report the political funds in the reports, and there will be there's a movement for them to ask the political ethics committee meeting, and what's your take on this?
政治資金規正法等について
On the Political
先
Funds
ほど申
Control
し上げ
Act,
た通りであり
then
ます
I
が、
stated my
後ろの
ideas
手当を行
about
いたい
that.
と思っており
And
ま
I'd
す。
like to give
特に
certain
旧
treatment,
文通費
particularly the
今
former
は
communication
調査
travel
研究
expenses.
広報
And
滞
right
在
now
費
it is
という
called
も
the
のがあり
research
ま
and
すが、
communication
こ
travel
れをどうする
expenses.
か。
How we
これ
should
は最
go
高の
about
改
doing
正
it.
とのものであります。
And this
当然議
is
会において
this
ご議論いただくことになり
this is associated with the
あるいは
revision
政
of
策
that law,
活
and
動
this
費も
has
先
been
ほど申し上げた通り
discussed in the night. As I said, political activities expenses, I stated my opinions. I don't think we can get understanding of the people in Japan if the situation remains as it is, and we will consider various options, including abolishment of the
早期に
expenses. We have to have a third-party independent organization to like to come up with the opinions within the LDP as soon as possible, so that we make an arrangement in a very active manner with other political parties and diet groups.
いわゆる企業団体献金も
So-called the companies and organization donation to political parties
企
and
業
was
団体も
mentioned
そ
by
れが社
myself.
会的な
The
構成
companies
ある
and
以上
organizations, they are the members of the society.
主体に
Then
対して寄
to
付することは
political
禁じられてい
parties
ます。
having
それより
same
も
ideas, and they are not prohibited giving donations, and this was held in the judgment of the Supreme Court, and likewise in the
様々
Constitution.
なご議論があるんだろ
But
うと思って
does
おり
it
ます。
suffice? I think
企業団
opinions
体
are
のウ
different,
ェイトを減
discussions
ら
are
して個
mixed.
人のウェイトを減ら
And
す
to reduce the donations from the political and the companies, and then to increase the donations of the individuals, we have to think about the deduction. Or we may have to set up a limit on the amount of donations.
ということ
And
で
database, and then DX,
政治資
and
金規正法
making
にありま
database,
すように
as is mentioned in the Political Funds Control
ということを
Act.
容認していかねばならない
And
と思って
the political funds should be under the people's scrutiny and supervision all the time.
それが国民の
Companies,
皆様方に
organizations
分か
have
る
different
形で議論
ideas,
し
but we have to have a discussion in a transparent way to the people in Japan. Then we really have to come up
ま
with
た
a conclusion as soon as
政治資も
possible,
含めまして
including political
この
ethics
そ
committee.
れぞれの責任の署名というのか弁明というのかどうすればいいかというのは
How
それは
each diet
政治
member
資を含
should
むあらゆる
fulfill
場
his or
所
her
で説明
responsibility.
の機会を設ける
Then
よう
there
に
has to
こ
be
れは促
an
していかねばなら
opportunity
ない
and
と思
occasion
って
so
また
that
言い
they
方を
can
なぜす
give
るかというと
their explanation about
政治
involvement.
資の議員の判断によるもの
It
で
is
ござい
up to
ま
the
す
judgment of each political, each diet member whether he or she attends the political ethics committee or not.
しかしながら
And instruction, it is a matter where Prime Minister, the President of DP give instruction for attendance, but we'd like to take advantage of various opportunities so that the diet members can give their own explanation. We'd like to encourage such an activity. As I said just now, the revision of laws.
アクセスする機会を
People
容易にす
We'd
るよう
like
な
to create an environment, make an effort so that people can access information easily, and so that I think the political funds should be under the oversight of the people in Japan. And likewise, we'd like to take a question from the 共同通信。
島山です。それお疲れ様です。 同じく少数与党の
Thank you,
一
Mr.
側
Prime
面について
Minister.
伺いたいと思い
So I
ま
want
す。
to also ask a question about the minority government. After the second Abe administration, the diet operation, maybe after the general election, the operation will change. And to be specific, you have to involve opposition parties, and you need to have more careful and in-depth discussions at the sessions, and more deeper discussions between the parties is something that is expected. What's your take on that? And you've been watching the budget committee discussions. And this election result, we don't know how it will pan out, and including the future development at the director session. What is your idea? What do you make of that? What do you make of the current situation? This situation might be something ideal for democracy, but I don't want to be misleading. I'm not saying that the defeat of the ruling party is a good thing, but I think it's a good thing in terms of the discussions will be deeper and more indeed more sophisticated. And when I was Secretary General and at the upper house, I was also saying I received questions from the opposition parties or received proposals from them, and when I answer the questions as the government, I do not only answer to the diet member, but I'm also answering the questions toward the people behind those diet members, behind those questions, and that remains the same in terms of that. How should I reply to a type of question? This has to be deeper and more sophisticated than ever before, and the discussions need to be more in depth, because the session is a place for discussion, and when we have different opinions from the ruling parties and opposition parties, we always have to find a sweet spot, and we cannot always amend the legislations or budgets, but we have to make it transparent and visible for people who are watching why there are different opinions. So we would like to be more careful in the discussions, but it doesn't mean that we have endless time to spend. We have to have very careful discussions while we also be efficient. So I think that there are a lot that we can do on this.
Then we'd like to take questions from reporters other than coordinators, and please raise your hand in case you have a question. Then Mr. Karia of Yomiuri, please go ahead. This is Karia from Yomiuri. Can I ask a question about the diplomacy of Japan? Mr. Trump then will be come back as a U.S. president. There are concerns about related countries that the G7's unity that may be jeopardized. Do you have a strong and personal relationship with Mr. Trump, and how are you going to face up to him and to stabilize the Japan-U.S. relationship and direct encourage involvement from the international community, including Mr. Trump, in establishing relationship with the various leaders of various nations? That it's quite important that there has to be a political stability in Japan. Right now, the LDP doesn't have a majority in the lower house. Do you, to prevent the situation in the Japanese politics and from impacting international relationship, what's your take on this? Let me respond to your second question on the diplomacy and national security. The opinions are not completely different. Political parties, if there is a separation between ruling parties and opposition parties, and that's what it should be. On diplomacy, the ideas are completely different, and it is not good, and it is not to serve national interest in case there is a complete separation of ideas on diplomatic matters between ruling parties and the opposition parties, and JIP, and DPFP, and CDPJ. On national security and constitution diplomacy, then we have discussed discussions for a long time, but there is a clear-cut difference between among those parties. I've never thought that Japan's diplomacy will be jeopardized and will be undermined due to the separation of those ideas. It is quite possible for us to have an agreement, to have complete discussions in various diet committees, including national security and diplomatic committee. Mr. Trump gave various claims and demands on Ukraine and Gaza Strip during the election campaign and alliance, and he mentioned a lot of the matter. After he becomes the president of the United States, and I cannot. There is no telling what he is going to do after he became the president of the United States. We have to have a detailed analysis on his remarks during the election campaign. Then will be to serve Japan's national interests, but the U.S. has its own national interests. And direct confrontation of the national interests of the two countries will bring us nowhere. Whatever we do, then there has to be contribution to the national interests of the two countries as well as the stability of Asia Pacific. How much compromise we can make, I don't think it is not a good matter. So I don't have such an idea.
NHK 岩沢さん。
Iwasawa with NHK, please.
NHK の岩沢です。よろしくお願いします。年収の壁の見直しについて伺います。少数与党となる中で、与党と国民民主党との間で政党間の協議が始まっています。国民民主党はいわゆる年収103万円の壁の見直しを求め、公明党も前向きな立場です。政策実現のため国民民主党の協力が不可欠となる状況の中、年収の壁の見直しにどう対応するかお願いします。
You need the support of DPFP. How are you going to tackle the review of the 1.03 the annual income ceiling? In terms of the review of this matter, the ruling parties will take this very seriously. We will be sincerely tackling this. As between the chairs of the Policy Research Councils and also the Tax Commission chairs, there will be discussions to be held. And in terms of the 1.03 million seating, to be specific, it is important how we can increase the income on hand and how much labor how can be provided and when the income increases. But in terms of the tax income as a whole, what it is going to be, there are many issues that need to be discussed. And how are we going to look at the effect and how much income, tax income and income tax will change? We need to do a lot of calculations. And of course, it is quite important that this is gaining support from the public, but between the chairs of the Policy Research Councils and also the Tax Reform Councils, there should be solid discussions to be held.
We'd like to take two questions due to the interest of time. Nihon TV.
総理、日本テレビの平本と申します。先ほど冒頭の発言政治改革で何に国民が怒っているのか受け止めなくてはいけないということがありました。この言葉すごいポイントだなと思ったんですが、以前はやはりその多くの国民が私たち取材活動をしていても岸田総理というのは怒りを受け止めてそれを言葉に発してくれた政治家だと思っていたのが、今はその怒りを感じているのかなと思っている国民が増えているのではないかと私は思っています。
But nowadays, many people are wondering whether Prime Minister Shiba is understanding the anger of the people. You said that you have to accept anger of the people in Japan. But anger itself, what is the analysis of anger in Japan? Then to eliminate the people's anger, you mentioned some specific measures. What is the idea behind when you try to control, eliminate the people's anger? What's your idea on this? Political funds are not subject to taxation. Then people are wondering why that is the case. And when I wonder why that is the case, the politics is a public activity. And that is not a contribution of the individual happiness. The government is for the people. Government has to operate for the people in Japan. That's why the political expenses shouldn't be subject to taxation or should be exempt from taxation. That is what it should be. But by so doing, politics for the sake of money, and whether that's happening, because political expenses are exempt from tax, but those political expenses may be used for other purposes. I think that is a source of anger. If that is true, even if that is true, but there is no measure or system to shed light on the situation. But this time, a college professor scrutinized each one of the political funds report, and he spent a lot of time. Then he's finding discoveries and came up for the first time. The Intention Political Funds Control Act, the political funds should be under people's scrutiny all the time, but that is not happening at all. So there is a suspicion among people in Japan. When something suspicious happens, but there are no systems to shed light on what's happening, then the right members of politicians do not facing down the matter. And I believe that this is a source of anger of the people in Japan. In a nutshell, people with money can enjoy benefits, and politicians may be engaged in politics just for the sake of money. I believe we have to frankly recognize that the people have such anger among themselves.
Kuronuma with the Nikkei newspaper. Thank you. My question is about the support for semiconductors industry. In your opening remarks, you mentioned AI and semiconductors. By 2030, more than 10 trillion yen of public support will be extended. What is the intention behind the support, and how are you going to fund those 10 trillion yen? As I stated earlier, by 2030, more than 10 trillion yen of public support will be used to be as a driver to support the industry and to enhance the predictability for the private sector. And we want to invoke more than 50 trillion yen of private investment. The discussions will start from now on. What I want to mention about how we found this is that we are not going to issue deficit government deficit bonds. And we are going to provide more detailed explanations later.
この後の予定がございますので、これをもって会見を終了させていただきます。今、挙手いただいている者は書面でご質問をご提出いただければと思います。
Conclude the press conference with that, and we will receive questions from you in a written format, and we will answer to your questions later. Thank you for your cooperation.